to you.
Yeah, cool. So, Drew, what do we have in store for people today?
Well, today we are going to continue along with our let's build out an application and see how it goes. So we said we're going to lead into something that we called MVC and an MVC framework and look at those patterns. But that doesn't really matter. What we are going to do is start out by building a pretty simple app that accomplishes some things that you might want to do at times, which is show something to a user through a web browser is what we're going to use. Collect some information from a user through a web browser. So in this case, we're going to be building a list of fruits. So it's my favorite fruit, my favorite fruit or my favorite fruits. And we'll just take a list of however many fruits the person wants to put in, and we can store that. So it's going to be processed through, or that'll be sent when we sent through a form on a web browser to our app, and then it will be written somehow to disk. And in this case, we'll probably just write it to a file and display that. Then we'll talk maybe a little bit about performing some operations on it. So we should be able to input words, strings, save them. We should be able to edit or delete them as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Eventually.
I think this is gonna to build this out, right? Like we're gonna start. We're gonna start like simple, right? We're gonna create an app that works, and then we're gonna notice like, okay, we did it this way, and there was pains in doing it that way, right? Like we're trying to eventually get to like, why do you even bother using an MVC? Like, why do you bother structuring your code in that way? It's not just because like someone else is doing, you're just copying them. I mean, for some people it is, but like it usually makes your life easier.
Yeah, the idea is that we're going to start with something, then we're going to sort of build it out a way to get it to just work, then sort of analyze and look at the structure of it, and think about what issues we might have, maybe step through some of them with that and with extending it, and then think about how we could restructure it to avoid those issues. And I think a lot of those issues, with our app being as simple as we've defined it, we won't start to hit them right away. But once we start to add other features to it, so maybe when we start to do like an edit and delete, we'll start to see like the hints of some of the problems that we'll have. Definitely, if we start to add multiple types of lists, maybe different people and different types of interactions, then we'll start to see, as the complexity of the things that we want to do starts to grow, and the similarity of different parts is kind of replicated all over the place. That we'll start to hit some pain points, and there's some common ways that we could deal with that. And that's when we come in, like these common ways that we deal with these things that we often find when building applications end up becoming what people call patterns. Usually somebody will coin a term for it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me just do that really quick. Fantastic. Okay, great. So we have this, and I'm going to try to make that as big as possible. Okay. So we want to create an application where you can tell it what fruits you like, and we can also C-list those fruits, right? So we're going to like, like we could do a to-do list, we could do all sorts of things. We're just going to do this, right? Like it's something that
one reason to do this is because it's very simple.
Yeah. And it lets us focus on other parts that we kind of want to focus on, right? Like eventually, like how to structure your code without necessarily focusing on like, like we create this e-commerce site or something, because there's a lot of complexity there.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like so, in the initial case, we don't even care about, more than one user or whether there are.
Okay. So let's start. So I have a main here already. I'm just going to move that somewhere else. Old. Okay. So let me clear that. So we're going to create a new main, and just because I'm comfortable writing in Go, I'm going to write this in Go. And when I start off, I always just want to make sure things are working. So
And I think something that we can do for anybody who's maybe not familiar with Go is we'll just add, maybe not today, but another time we'll add a little bit of a tutorial to kind of get up to speed with Go, and we'll add that to our YouTube, and then put some links to this video when it makes it to YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So give me a sec. So what I'm going to do is go run and okay. So hello world. So that works. Fantastic. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to make it so we can, get inputs from the user, right? So we're going to set up a basic website. So, I might look at the Go documentation and, we go to examples. And in this case, I think probably listen and serve. And really what I want is kind of this code here. I want something like this. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, you knew to go to the HTTP net, or net HTTP package. That's part of the standard library, and you'd be pretty familiar with it if you, even if you've done like very basic tutorials in Go or gone through.
Yeah.
I think if you just do the intro to Go.
Yeah, I mean, if you've never done that, you probably look at a bunch of these and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of like jumping to the chase.
Yep.
I know there's something like this. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to leave the hello worlds in there because it just tells me something's happening. And of course, like I'm using this, so I need to import.
And depending on how you have your text editor set up, that could be an auto import. But
yeah,
it's not
yeah, right. It could. It just isn't for me. Okay, so I have that imported. Now I don't do this style. I put a handler there. And I'm going to create that handler. So var handler, and it's going to be something I create, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a type called my handler, and we might rename this later when it makes more sense. And we're going to put nothing in here, but we want a special method because a handler has a certain kind of method, like what we pass in here. And because this is like if we look at the listen and serve, we can see. Actually, you can't see it, so let me scroll up. Here, that parameter, actually, this is the wrong one. This one. This is a handler, and handler is something that has this method. So we want this. So I want to give this thing a method like that, and it's kind of getting cut off. Let me just move it down. Okay. So it takes that, and
I think you can even make it a little bit smaller, like your text, if you want. We could. Yeah, that's fine.
And then here's the request, and again HTTP dot. And okay, so this is the start of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like output something, right? So in Go, I like when I want to write to something, when I want to send output, I do it on this thing, the writer, response writer. Right? I just call it W. And Go has this. Actually, I'll just do fprint line. So I'm going to write it to W. I'm going to send outputs to the browser, and I'm just going to do it worked. So we'll just start with that. And okay, let's see. So I've got this. Let's just see what happens. It might not work.
Okay. And yeah, like if something's running on port 8080, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I'm opening up two browsers. Okay. Okay. So Go. Let me just clear. Okay. So Go run main. There's a problem. Cannot use handler. My handler as type. Oh, right. What I did is I put the method as a pointer to my handler, but up here, I just passed my handler. So I need to do this. So let's see if that works. Okay, so I think it's running. So now I'm going to, I'm just going to open up a browser, and I'm going to go to localhost. So it's running on my computer. So I'm going to go to that port 8080, and hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to open up that browser. And I'm doing it this way just because my computer is kind of weird. I hope to resolve that at a certain point. just get a better setup. Like I actually like elementary OS, and
Hmm.
my computer died before, and I picked up a Chromebook. Some stuff's okay. I'm not that happy with it.
Yeah.
I find it doesn't work for me that well. So I want to go back to elementary OS.
Yeah, I like elementary OS. I also like Mac OS a lot, but my MacBook died pretty recently,
Yeah,
so I've been using Windows a fair
yeah,
bit on a desktop, and that's it's actually not as bad as I was expecting. It's pretty decent.
yeah. At a certain point, I think the first time I try to load the browser, it takes a while. Please
Uh,
load. This is going to be difficult to work with. If it doesn't load.
yeah,
Um,
if it doesn't load, then maybe we would start from the other end.
yeah, yeah. We'll give this a couple seconds and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
we could always just sort of have like a CLI
yeah,
instead and kind of consider that like the view area. Like one of the interesting things I think, if we built out the same framework but had a CLI, we would maybe still be able to reuse the controllers and we'd definitely be able to reuse the models.
yeah.
Depends on how we built it out.
Um, why isn't this opening? We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please
What
stand by.
what if you just open your browser and manually type it out? Is
Yeah,
that not going to work?
so I tried that before. Let's give that a try.
Yeah. Oh, because you've got your terminal in a different
Yeah,
like
I
container.
I don't know. Oh wait, it worked. Okay, look at that. Okay,
Oh, nice.
that's actually cool. Okay, thanks, Drew. Actually, last time we tried that, it didn't work. So that's kind of interesting that it's working now. Okay, so we've got this. Let me just full screen this because okay, fantastic. Okay, so we have that. It's working. We got some output. That's great. Okay, so let me just kill that. And you notice, like, if I reload this, it should actually not work. Um, no, whatever. Okay, so
You
I
could
don't know
just
what's doing.
control R. I think should reload it.
Yeah, it's not. I
Oh,
don't
it's
know.
just taking time. It looks from the bottom left that
Yeah, yeah.
it's
It's spinning.
it's working on it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So fantastic. We got this working.
Hmm.
So what do we want to do now? Right. Okay. So we want to create something where you can see what fruits are your favorites and also add fruits, right? Like long term, you might want to edit. Like what happens if you spell cherry wrong? Like you spell CHERY, it has two R's. You want to correct
Yeah.
it. What happens if you
Or
want to
delete
delete
it for a
fruits?
minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Like maybe like one day you liked avocado, but now you hate avocado, so you want to remove it or something like that.
Yeah.
We'll do
And
that
then
with
what happens if you want to undo those deletes?
yeah, yeah. So what we're going to do first, we're going to just
Hmm.
like go MVP style, minimal viable product. What's the minimum we could do before we can get like something working, right? And like try
Yeah.
it out. And
So I think the thing there would be, we want to be able to either add or display a
yeah,
list, and so probably that really just add
yeah,
and view, right?
yeah. We got some comments. Maybe just use curl instead of waiting for Chromium. Never mind, but that was slow. Yeah, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I think Yorman. Yeah. So it actually, like last time we were doing this, like we tried like just a normal browser and it didn't work, and then we tried Chromium within within my container and it worked. Now I don't know what's going on. We had some problems because like I just updated my computer and now it's acting kind of odd. Okay, fantastic. So we're gonna be able to see what fruits you like, and we're gonna be able to like add them, and then like we're gonna try that out. Okay. So the first thing I think is we want to like add them first. I think because like if we try to see stuff, like
Yeah.
there's nothing
Uh,
there to see yet. Or did you want to do it
Well, well, we,
differently?
well, we kind of have to. I guess like we can think through this a couple of different ways, right? Like
Yeah.
if we look at it as a sort of vertical slice,
Yeah.
and by vertical slice, I mean something that's going to uh, sort of hit each portion of the stack. So that would be like a file. Maybe we have a file which has a list of the favorites. We have a
Yeah.
way to serve that to the view. We could just type out that file, right,
Okay.
to,
Yeah.
to
So
begin with.
that's a good point. So I mean, like
Mhm.
we could start off and we can say like we'll just call it db.text for database.text,
Okay,
And
sure.
we can put some fruits. We can put some fruits in here: apple, banana, cherry, date. I don't know what starts with an E. We'll put those for those
Okay,
four.
so that sounds good. Um, I think it's interesting to note that you assumed that we would do it one on each line,
Yep.
which just kind of makes sense. But
Yeah, there's lots of ways. I mean, we could do
mhm,
tablets. We need some way of separating the fruits,
yeah, and
right?
in this case, you're just choosing a character turn
yeah. I mean, I'm choosing a character turn.
or
I
line
think
break.
maybe because like if I open up a text editor, it's easy
Yeah.
for me to kind of read, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
what
really?
happens? What happens if, well, at least for me, like I mean,
Yeah.
there's no real hard fast reason. It's just like
Hmm.
I made an arbitrary choice based on what my preferences are, right? Which is like with a lot of things.
Hmm.
So I just
Sure.
chose these, and I put them in alphabetical order. They don't have to be in alphabetical order. Like I could put cherry first or something,
Yeah.
if you want. Okay, so we have this file.
Yep.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dump this, and I think because we're trying to map, um, we're trying to map like not MVC, the what's it called, CRUD,
Hmm.
like the so CRUD was, this is like an I guess initialization
Well, it's
create.
yeah, create, read, update, delete, I think, or
Yeah,
maybe destroy. It's a very common set of things that you would want to do with
yeah,
um, with with data
yep. And because we're using
user
HTTP,
interactions.
just set this up. Because we're using HTTP, we're going to map this to HTTP methods, right? So
Hmm.
create, we're going to do an HTTP post. Read, so there's two different kinds of read. You could read one fruit. Actually, I guess the other one in this case would be bread. But let's just, there's one style. We're going to do HTTP get,
Hmm.
right? Updates would be, it could be either an HTTP put or an HTTP patch, depending on whether we want to change part of it or all of it.
Hmm.
And then delete, like actually matches up pretty naturally, HTTP delete. So we're gonna use get.
So, so it's kind of interesting, like I think this brings up actually a bit of an interesting point right here already when you look at the put and versus patch.
Yeah,
We'll come back to that, I think, but like I think there's this kind of interesting thing here, especially in that we've chosen to have a single file. And so what would those represent in our actual system? And would we be telling the truth by
yeah,
having them?
yeah.
But anyway,
Okay,
we'll come back to that.
so let's start with get, right?
Hmm.
And I will say, for the keen, or maybe some people are a bit familiar with this, I'm glazing over the path a bit, right? So
Hmm.
like we're kind of ignoring the path. We're using the like root directory. um, we'll get a little more complex where we kind of handle that, but I want to focus first on the methods and kind of like just this part right now, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so we have this file. This is our database, right? And each fruit is on its own separate line.
Hmm.
And I want to go into main. Okay, we're in the main. And first thing I want to do is be able to, okay, well, I have this method, and based on the HTTP method coming in, I want to be able to do different things. And we're going to handle get first. Okay, so how do we figure out the HTTP method? Okay, so let's go to our docs,
Hmm.
and in here, I'm looking at request. Why am I looking at request? Because as you can see it, like the second parameter to the serve HTTP method is a request. And when I come in here, and I kind of noticed ahead of time, but we talked about it in previous video. When I come here,
We did.
the method, right? The methods, like this method field will tell me whether it's, post, get, put, delete, or anything else. It could be like stuff we made up like screen, punch, kick. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to leave that it work there. Actually, no, let's get rid of that. So I'm going to do switch, and I'm going to do request dot, and it was methods. We'll just copy that and paste it.
Hmm.
And then it could be different things. It could be get, post, but we're going to just handle get. And then
And
for
it
the
maybe a
one,
default would be like we don't know what to do with that yet.
yeah, so we'll respond with an error. So let's handle that. So we're
Okay.
going to do something here. We're going to do something here. Okay, so in this package, and this is just something built in, there is something for handling errors. And we did discuss this in a previous video. So, okay, so it's HTTP dot error. And then like, where do you write it to? Well, we have W up here, so
response
we'll just paste that there. And then the second thing is an error string, methods not handled or something like that. And then the code. Okay, so I want to use the proper HTTP code. So we're just going to look this up really quick. Look at the Mozilla documentation and method not allowed. Okay, so that's what it was. So I'm just going to replace, if you can see that, I'm going to replace the text with that method not allowed.
And would you mind putting that line up a little bit, just because it's difficult to see?
Oh, the one here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to copy this text. The text actually, you can put anything you want there. I could put like, tough luck. I'll just put that.
I thought you were going to say tough love.
I think you're thinking of something else.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put the 405 here, right? So this is how this method works. Where you write it to, this is what represents the browser, or what gets sent to the browser. I put some string, this is meant for a human, and then the code, that comes from the spec, right? And then I want to end here, so I return. Okay, fantastic, we set that up, right? So we're handling here. So for all the methods, not a get, we're going to handle the get, but for post for now, puts, punch, kick, run, scream.
And here we could just write back it worked for now, and then just see if this logic even works, right?
Perfect. Okay, so fprintf, and this is kind of what we had before, I guess, line.
Yep. Yeah.
And then we had W, and then it's worked. Okay, so that's good. Let's give that a try. Oops, I made a mistake. Line 24. Print, thank you. Okay. So we got that. Let's go back to our browser. And where was the browser that I had? Oh, there we go. Okay, it worked. Fantastic. So if we do a get, we get that. With this, it's kind of tough to check. But remember, we actually can check this with the console.
Oh, yes.
To see if like the
other methods,
happens, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So let's bring this up, and we're going to do a little trick that we talked about before. We're going to connect the server, so localhost, and then we're running on port 8080, so we'll do that. And then we're going to get the root method, or actually we're going to post on it, I think. Or no, let's do screen.
Anything that's not get.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do, so again, ignore this top part, and kick /http/1.1 host localhost connection close, because I don't want it to do more than one request. Okay, fantastic. Actually, you can see that. 405 method not allowed. Okay, so that's what we expect. Okay, so it seems like it's working. That's really good. Hang on, there's comment. Yorman, I do know about the constants. You are correct in production code. I would use the constants. I was trying to kind of keep it simple so people could actually see what's going behind the constants. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. Like normally in code, instead of writing 405 explicitly in that error code, I would use a constant that represents it. But I was trying to make it a bit simpler for the people who are maybe not familiar with that.
In this case, what difference do you think that would, what sort of a trade-off, or what sort of trade-offs would you be looking at?
405 is a magic constant, right? Like unless you know what it means.
I think one thing would maybe be potentially different language use cases.
Yeah. For the constant?
Yeah, would the constant maybe we can actually look at that documentation. Would it be smart enough to respond based on the language? So the string portion of that would then just map to the localized language version?
So here's the docs. So this is what Yorman's talking about. There's a bunch of constants. You can see we used 405, so there is a constant here, status method not allowed, right? And instead of writing 405, which you don't even know what that means, maybe what does 405 represent? Is that like how many square feet in your apartments? Is it you don't know, right? But status method not allowed is what you would use in production code because it's meaningful. You know what the intent. But I wanted to keep it more obvious, like the link between the docs and stuff like that. So I just used the number. But there's a lot of different ones in here that you can use.
So I guess really the only trade-off would be to keep it human readable in
Yeah.
the method invocation, right? Or the
Yeah. So
call.
if we use this,
Mm-hmm.
then it would make it more readable to someone who's experienced with this. But I just left it out. But let me where to go? I'll put this as kind of a comment. Okay, so let me kill that.
Or you could even just swap it out, probably.
Right here. So what Yorman was suggesting was using this. And yeah, that's a better way to do it. Okay. So it still works. Okay, fantastic. So we got the basic stuff working. So what do we want to do? We want to handle the get, right? And there's two ideas, like when we do CRUDs. Another acronym related CRUD is bread, where kind of like the read in CRUD is split into two. So do you look at a single item or do you look at all of them, right? Like, do you look at a single fruit that you're interested, or of the list of fruit, right? In the case of fruit, like looking at a single one maybe doesn't make much sense, but think if you had users, do you look at the list of all users or do you look at a single user, right? In our case, we're going to do the browse. We're going to get a list instead of looking at a single item, but we'll get into, like, where you deal with single items later. Okay, so we're handling the get, and we want to get data from that file, and we want to output it, right? Okay, so let's go to our documentation, and I'm going to look up some docs. I'm going to type Golang, and I know there's an OS package. Actually, maybe I might be able to read the whole thing. Hang on. I think there's an OS util. Is that here? OS util. I think there's an OS util, maybe. Oh, the IO util. That's what it is. Okay, so there's an IO util, and okay, look, I can read the whole file. Right, so Go has a function. I want to get the data from the file. Go has a function where I can read the whole file, and that's what I want to do. And I want to output that to the user. And at least for now, we're going to keep the outputs like simple. We're just going to dump it as is, right? Eventually, we're going to read this in. We're going to parse it. We're going to make some HTML, make it like a fancy display. But at first, we're just going to dump it. Okay, so let's read the data. So this package, I got to like import this. Okay, that's good. So I'll go to my code and I'll go up to the top and paste that there. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the get method. I'm not going to type it's worked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me just get that read file. Okay. I'm going to read the file. And I need the file name. And I'm going to just hard code this. Yorman will probably point out, like, it's probably a better idea not to just hard code it like this. But just for now, I'm going to hard code it there just to make it kind of easier to read.
We can come back later. And
yeah. And okay, so here is, I'll call that fruits, comma, error, right? So I'm calling this function. And when I call it, I give it the file name, and then it returns to me, if it works, right? It gives me the contents of the fruits, and it's going to be in a byte array. And if it doesn't, then it gives me an error. Okay, so how do I handle the error? Well, I need to check the error. And I'm going to say, okay, if the error is not nil, right? So if there is an error, then I'm going to do something, right? And what I'm going to do is, like, I handle the error over here.
So I guess I have a question for you here. I've seen people do error not equals nil, and you've done nil not equals error. Is that a preference, and why?
So this comes from the days when I was programming in C decades ago. And okay, so let me actually, I'll bring up I'm not going to change the code there, but I'll just do it over here. Okay, so in C, you might write something like this. So you could write x equals 2 and then do some stuff. If you forgot the 2 equals, this is still valid code. But what you've done is you've accidentally assigned 2 to x and then just carry it through. It's a bug. It's like a bug that you don't necessarily notice.
What if you did if 2 equals x and x is nil, then?
this is a compile time error,
Yeah.
right? So I got used to doing it like, like that way.
Yep.
Just to deal with this error. Now
Because it would
I don't.
catch.
Yeah, I mean, there is a case where this is valid code in Go, but
Mm-hmm.
often it's a compile time error.
Mm-hmm.
Like a assignment does not like return a value also usually.
Right.
There is a case where this still is compiled, but I'm very used to writing it this way, so I tend to like always kind of stick to that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so getting back to this, we open the file, we're reading the contents, and if it worked, we get the contents in this fruit variable, which is a byte array.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't work, we get an error. And if there is an error, we want to check it. Now, in this case, if we get an error, we're not going to, it's not method not allowed. Like that's the wrong one. I copied and pasted the code from before. So I need to change the error, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I want is like something bad happened on the server.
Right.
With this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
with HTTP, there is an error for that. Oops.
Internal server error.
Yeah, it's internal server error.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm going to say. And I mean, you could give more details, but I'm going to call it internal server error because that is what we say when something bad happens on the server, and we don't want to go into details.
Right.
And in Go, and Jorman's going to point this out, that in Go you do have a method or a constant that you can use instead of 500, but 500 is what this constant equals. So we will place that there and do that. And if it does work, actually, for now, let's no, should we dump it? Yeah, let's do it worked because the dumping code's a bit more complex. So I'm going to.
You could also maybe change up the text just in case, because if you look back at your the previous thing and you're refreshing it, but it might just be hanging, and you think, oh,
Yeah.
it worked. Yeah.
Okay, so I changed it to "we are here now." Okay. So if it fails, we should get this error, internal server error.
Yeah.
If it works, then we should get "we are here now." Okay, so let's clear that, and we'll go run main. Oh, I forgot the T again. Why do I forget the T?
I don't know.
I don't know why I keep on doing that. It's like a common misspelling. Okay, so go run. Oh, damn. Oh, not use. Oh, that's a Go thing.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna for now. I'm gonna we're gonna ignore that. Go's very particular. If you don't use a variable, it counts as an error. Okay, so it's running. Let's go to the browser, and we're gonna refresh, and we're gonna see what happens. We are here now. Fantastic. So what it seems like is happening is that we've loaded the file, the db.txt, and that's where we put our database. This is the format we've created, and we were able to read the stuff in, and we got the point. So let's dump it now. Let's get the contents of there.
So actually, just a quick question on the underscore syntax there. So I know that we do that as convention for saying like this is a variable I'm not going to use, but does it actually assign the return value to that underscore or underbar?
Good question. I don't actually know what it does with it. Yeah, good question. I mean, like with a lot of these things, I don't know how Go exactly implements functions, but sometimes the data that returns from a function either gets put into a register or pointed to by a register. So these are like really fast memory within a CPU, a central processor, or it gets pushed onto the stack or something like that. I don't know what happens when you do underscore for that. It might just it might be just a way of saying ignore it. And then
I was actually thinking when you were saying like the nil not equals that was sort of a C-ism that's carried over for you. I see also a lot of people putting their main function at the bottom of the file, and I think that's a carryover from C as well, but it's not necessary in Go. Yeah,
for me, Go feels a lot like a modern C. I liked C. Like I was a C programmer a long time ago, so I think I like part of the reason why I like Go is it reminds me of C. Okay, so we'll get rid of that underscore. We'll use fruits. Okay, we have fruits, and what we want to do is we want to dump it here. Okay, so W. Okay, so W is interesting. Let's let's come back here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to search for serve, or actually type handler. Okay, there we go. So type handler, and handler takes this. And the first parameter, or W, is response writer. So what is response writer? So it's an interface and it has a whole bunch of things, right? Like it has all these stuff, but it has a write method. And just because I know it, this write method is the same write method you have in the IO package. So in Golang, you have, Golang IO, and let me make, oh, you can see
Well,
that.
so with Go, you have the IO package, and then you have the IO/IO util package.
Yeah.
So are they actually is that the same IO package?
Yeah, that's a sub package under it. I don't know if I was writing that IO util package, I probably wouldn't put it there, and I probably wouldn't call it IO util, but that's a separate thing. But yeah, they're kind of like in the same structure together. There's a subdirectory of it. Okay.
Yeah, same with the net HTTP.
Yeah. So you can see like this write method. It's the same one we have for this. They look similar, but you can see it takes a byte array. And why is that important? Because this read file, the fruits, is a byte array. So it, like, what we could do, I think, we can just take the W and we'll just call its write method, right? I think we can just do this. So I think if we just put fruits in here, like, I think that'll work. Now it returns some stuff. It returns the number of bytes written. I'm going to ignore that. You don't have to, but I'm going to ignore that. But I will check the error, right? Okay. And if it returns an error, I'm going to say, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to output it for now. And this just goes to the console. This doesn't go to the browser. Error.
What kind of case would that, I guess if you didn't have a slice of bytes to pass it, or it seems kind of, I guess if you maybe used a different way to read the file, and then you ended up passing the wrong thing at that point.
So if I had different data, like I might do something like this. I could use format f print f.
Yeah.
So I pass the W instead of calling the W's write method, and then I would construct what I want to do. Like here is some. Here, okay, like here. Let's just put that, and then like depending on the type, I might put like %s, and then
interpolate,
or like whatever it is, like a %v. So I would use this to help me send data to W, right? But because the data I have is a byte array, I can just pass it to it straight. But we'll get more into this, like especially once we get to V, like you'll see like really how this comes into play. Okay, so we're gonna dump those things. Okay, great. Go run main. Oops, I'm in an error. Line 30. What I write? Fruits. I already had error defined, so I don't need to create again. So the colon equals creates a new variable because I already have an error above, and I don't know why I'm pointing with my finger because you can't see that. Because I have an error above, I don't need to create a new error, so I just do that. Okay, fantastic. So let's run that. Okay, so it's running. We got the hello world. That's how we know it's running. And then we're going to the browser, and we're going to refresh. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Cherry, apple, banana, date. And we have cherry at top because we just switched it because we felt like it.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, so we're dumping it. That is good. So what do we want to do now? Okay, so we want to make it so we can also add stuff to this list. Now, normally when you do HTML stuff, to be able to add stuff to a list, you would want to post, right? So we're going to do post, and like that came down to when we were here, and say, okay, so create, read, update, delete. To create, we want to do a post, and in HTML, a way we can do a post is with an HTML form, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our code, and in addition to outputting the list on that page when you do a get, we're also going to make it so that you can have a form. So we're going to include that too. Okay, so let me do here. Now, of course, like if we're outputting a form, what does that mean? Well, we need to, output HTML, right? We're not just doing this. Okay, so fruits, right now we're doing this. Okay, but guess what? Like pretty soon we're going to see why you do the V in MVC. Okay, So let's do this. So, okay, so I'm going to construct what we're going to send,
Okay.
and I'm going to construct it into a buffer. Now, I think the new versions of Go, they have a new library under strings. Because you used to use bytes buffer, it was a type, and I think now they have this new thing, strings type builder, right?
Oh, interesting. That's from 1.10. I haven't looked at this.
Yeah, so I'm going to create that.
That's not that new, though.
No, but it's like I was using buffer for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create strings dot builder. I like calling it buffer. I'm going to call it buffer. I'm just going to go to the top. I need to add strings. And then, okay. So we have this. And instead of sending the data directly to W, first I'm going to put everything in here, and then I'm going to output it once. Right. And like, there's different reasons for this, but like one reason, for example, it's a lot faster to write something in a buffer than it is to send to the browser. Like, network is slow, memory is fast, relatively speaking, right? So I want to send it that way. There's also some complexities, I suspect, with the way the Go library works. If I send multiple things, but like this is a better way to, like, a better convention to do. So I'm going to send it to a buffer first, and then I'm going to write it all at once. Okay, so okay.
So I guess what's the difference between sending it to a buffer, as you put it, or just loading it in memory?
Well, this is loading into memory. I'm just calling that piece of memory a buffer.
A buffer.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, there's some methods like kind of that help you use this and other stuff, but it's basically, I have a chunk of memory and I'm just loading into there first, and then like I'm creating like a byte array somewhere, and then I write that byte array all at once to the browser, which is the W, right? So I mean, like, one thing I could do is, for example, like
yeah, I guess what's the benefit of using string builder over just creating your own byte array and loading it into that?
So I can use some methods like
that are included in it already.
Yeah, like this. Let me just go up. This has a whole bunch of methods. Like I can
that you would otherwise have to write yourself.
Yeah, you see, it has this write method. Because it has this write method with the way it's defined, I can use the formats, things like print line, printf, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it lets me use like other tools and kind of like compose them together and create something pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's actually, I guess, kind of like an interesting thing there. Looking at this library, even though it's part of the standard library, it is kind of a framework, if you would. It's things that somebody, I guess, it's functionality for some very common things that you would want to do with a buffer. What we're calling a buffer. So just loading, loading in this case an array or a slice of bytes into memory, and then the types of methods that you would likely be using on that, and then they're already here. So rather than have to implement that yourself or re-implement it every time you want to do it, you can just use this from the standard library.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of stuff that makes using this buffer easier because someone's went and coded that for you. Also, it makes it so that you can compose this with stuff that maybe expects a write method or respects like some of these other methods, and it just kind of like works well with other stuff.
And I guess this is something that I really like about Go in particular, is that I guess it didn't start like this, but now the standard libraries are all written in Go as well. So you can just kind of hop into them and see what other people did. And then that even serves as, I think anyway, like a relatively okay or pretty good reference for how other people have written packages, particularly the Go team.
Yeah.
Not everybody follows any particular sets of convention, or there's some, but not about everything.
So what do we do? Like we didn't have this line before. Before, what we were doing is we were writing directly to the browser, like over the network. We had this. And then what I did is I brought in a buffer, right? Strings builder. I'm using that. And instead of writing to the browser to W, I changed this to buffer. So I'm gonna store it there first. Now, I'm not gonna I'm gonna do some steps just to kind of see this. I have it in the buffer. So what do I want to do after having the buffer? I want to send it to the browser, right? So there's different ways of doing it. I think with this, what I'll do, does it have a write to? It does not have a write to. Okay, so I'll do w.write, and then I can, let's just give me bytes. Oh, it doesn't give me bytes. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, well, I'll just do it this really inefficient way. Or actually, it's not bad. I can do this. I'm going to use something from IO. Sorry, it has write string, and it lets me take a string and I can write it to a writer. So I'm going to bring in IO, and then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to do IO.write string, and I'm going to write it to W. So this represents the browser. This sends it over the network, and I'm going to go to the buffer, and the buffer has a way of getting a string from the buffer, right? So I can take buffer.string. So I'm going to take the buffer, and I have a way of saying, okay, as a string, like you think of like typecasting or whatever, as a string, I'm going to write that string to this buffer, and that should work. IO, does this return stuff? It does. Okay, so again, I'm going to ignore how much it writes. I'm going to check the error, and I'm going to just basically copy and paste that.
You don't need to initialize the error.
Right, thank you. Okay, so let's see if that works. I might get a compile time error. Let's see. Go run main. Yes, I did. Line 35.
Buffer has no method, right?
Oh, really? You got to be kidding.
Where did we type buffer strings builder?
Right. Hang on.
Right string.
No, it's not right string. Right. Builder. It doesn't right.
Builder.
Oh, I know why. It's a pointer receiver. So I got to. Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Let's do this. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, hang on. Var buffer, and then I guess whatever. I think like that. Oh, that's so annoying.
So that's kind of interesting. Why couldn't you just? Why did you have to wrap it in paren?
Oh, because I wasn't sure which syntax would work, to be honest. It's I needed to get a pointer, right? So like putting the ampersand gives you the pointer, and then I just put it in brackets because I wasn't sure the precedence of the dot versus the ampersand.
Oh, interesting.
So like this thing within the brackets is now a pointer to buffer, and that write method will work.
Right.
But that's kind of annoying. Like in some other languages, they have like the dot notation, and then they have like an arrow that they use, which is made up of like a minus sign and a greater than symbol. Okay, so we'll have that, and we refresh. Did it work? Okay, so it's let me just tweak this a bit so I can actually prove to myself it's working. Let's change the file. We're going to change DB, and we're going to move dates to the top.
Or just add something. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll put date at the top. I just want to make sure that actually worked. Okay, there, dates at the top. Okay, fantastic.
Right.
So that worked, and now what I want to do is I want to wants to output more than just that. So I want to do form. Okay, so let's go to the code, and okay, so we have the fruits that we're outputting the buffer, but before we need to do that, we need to start it like an HTML page, right? So we would do buffer.write string. Let's just do HTML and body, and then maybe here. I have to finish off because like above here, like we're opening the fruits, and then like I don't know if you're starting noticing like this seems kind of like really messy to put like this HTML code in here.
Oh no, it seems great. Yeah. Well, you know what it actually kind of reminds me of, to be honest, early days of PHP.
Yeah. Oh crap. There we go. And we come here. And like it's not on separate lines now because like HTML considers just like lines like that to be just like general white space, like stuff they can kind of ignore. So now we need to do more than just dump. Like we get the fruits, we need to kind of parse this. Okay, so I should just say it's 5:30.
Okay.
We
Well,
scheduled.
let's just quickly walk through what we have, because I think
Okay.
we actually ended up getting like a vertical slice pretty much, right,
Yeah.
for what we have. So we have a way that we're storing data, and that's in a db.txt file
Yep.
for now.
Yep.
We can maybe switch that out with something else a few days from now. We have a way to read from that. We don't have a way to write to it yet, do we? No.
Not yet.
We have a
Not
way
yet.
to read from that, and we also have a way to serve that to get requests asking for it coming in from a browser.
So get, we have like giving us the list of stuff in that file, list in the database, list of fruits, right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to add stuff to it, and we're like, well, if we're going to add stuff, we need to use the post method, and in HTML, you typically create a form for that. But if we do that, then we have to switch from using text, which is what we're doing, to HTML. And then once we did that, then it's like the formatting went away, and it's like, okay, now we want to do is put this in like a list, an HTML list, and then create the form and put in here. And then once we've kind of done this, we might see like, man, this is just so messy having this HTML code here. That's where the V comes in, right? Like that's, at least that's one of the reasons the V comes in, like why you separate, the look from like all this kind of logic code. But okay, so we've gone this far, and I guess tomorrow we're going to come back and continue, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. Let me just switch back.
So remember, here's an interesting thing. Last time we talked about it. We spent an hour just talking about what we were going to talk about and what we were going to do, and then we thought, oh yeah, well we can probably finish that in an hour.
Yeah.
That was a great estimate. But yeah.
I think it'll take us a number of days to get through. So I mean, like our goal is that.
Well, even just like we thought we'd just get that the basic list to be able to read and write to it with a user interface in the messy version, right?
Yeah.
But even that it ends up taking us several hours.
Yeah.
Because we're also explaining it and walking through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like kind of when you get into coding, you lose track of time a lot of times. Like you get focused on it. It's like, wow, like 8 hours just passed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll be back here tomorrow at the same time, 4:30 p.m.
Or tomorrow at actually 4:30, hopefully.
4:30 p.m. Yeah, Pacific time. Like today we had technical difficulties. Okay, so I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Drew, and to everyone watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.